There was one Nike commercial, what they called a 1,000-foot rim.
We would film all the scenes with Nigel, and then Michael would come in. Michael would then do take one, perfect.
That's debatable. That's debatable, Pete, but I won't answer it.
Welcome, Nigel. Nice to have you on our show.
Thanks for having me, Pete. Yeah, we've been through a lot, man, over the years. So I'm very excited to be here and talk about that.
So, Nigel, while working with Michael on the commercial, were there any stunts that were a little too risky?
Risky for who? For me or for him? Yeah, well, yeah, they were too risky for him. There was one Nike commercial, what they called a 1,000-foot rim, the 1,000-foot dunk, and we weren't quite 1,000 feet, but we were on a sound stage in Chicago. And while I had a body harness on, they wouldn't let Michael go up there, even just to show you hanging his legs. So I'm up probably, a couple 100 feet, body harness. The stunt guy is there, the coordinator, making sure everything is right. But they still wouldn't let Michael go up there. So he made the joke. He's like, if anything happens, I'll let your wife know that you died valiantly. He kind of laughed about that. But no, those were some incredible times. Getting the opportunity to work with, obviously, the great Michael Jordan, but just with a great company like Nike and ad agency Wieden & Kennedy. Those were significant points in my career, and I could say in my life, because it allowed me to meet Peter. It was an opportunity that was gifted to me because of my relationship with him. The fact that I've known him since we were 18 years old. We played on the McDonald All-American team together, and we were actually roommates in one of the games. I think it was the East-West game. So that relationship actually allowed me to get into the situation of working with Michael, because, the folks at Nike didn't know that I knew him like that. The folks at Wieden & Kennedy didn't know. But when they saw that, and they saw how comfortable he was around me, and just, it made everything a lot more easier, the working environment. So I tell the story all the time. I used to work with Nike and Wieden & Kennedy before I met Peter. But Pete was the one that actually started to, I would say, demand or whatever, that I'm in all the pre-pro meetings. Never been in a pre-pro meeting before now. But the stuff that I was doing that they were asking me to do, I would have to do it on the fly. What Peter allowed me to do was to be able to plan, and I could go in a little earlier and actually tell Michael, hey, this is what's going to happen, blah, 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 prior to us getting on set. So he appreciated that. People at Nike and Wieden & Kennedy appreciated that, because it made things a whole lot seamless. And what people don't know is, this is with all athletes, but especially Michael, you get a finite amount of time to deal with them on set.
Why is that, Nigel?
So, like I was saying, I think it's a way for the athlete's team to keep control over what's going on. So if they dictate that we only have 4-6 hours per shoot, from a production standpoint, that's not enough time. But they make sure that that's what you're getting, so you got to make it work. It's great for someone like me, or people that do the job that I was doing, because that makes your position mandatory, important, significant, however you want to phrase it. And like when Michael was there, since you only have a certain amount of time, no time was wasted. He was in and out. Now, obviously, we're doing production, so sometimes things don't go as planned. And that's where the relationship comes in I could remember a few times on set where it was a hard out 6 hours, hard out 5 hours or whatever. But we were able to get a little extra time with him after explaining this, and he sees what's going on. And the nice thing about him is that he wants the quality of work to come out, you know, in on screen or on the commercial. So he was a lot more giving of his time as opposed to the people that were handling him, justifying their jobs. Yeah, the agency and stuff.
We would film all the scenes with Nigel, and then Michael would come in and he would look at the monitor and say, he would watch the playback and say, okay, that's what you want me to do. In other words, he's watching Nigel do everything that he's supposed to do. So Nigel did everything before Michael did. Michael would then do take one, perfect, take two, even more perfect, and then move on to the next take.
A lot of that stuff too, like stuff off in the distance, when it's specifically on CEO Jordan, that would be me running, but obviously the close-ups are him or whatever, the money shots. But I remember one time specifically, those bridges that kind of run through Chicago, the downtown area or whatever, and we mimic a shot of him jumping over the bridge as it opens up, so a ship can go through or a boat can go through, and then it comes back down. They actually have Michael mimicking jumping over the bridge on the thing, but I remember us doing that, running up the bridge as it's starting to incline, open up, and just the access and what we were able to do. Well, this industry is amazing for that you get to see parts of the world or parts of another industry just because you're making a movie or a commercial. You kind of get special treatment to go in and see some like amazing things that the ordinary person might not see.
So Nigel, would you tell us a little bit about Michael's passion for playing cards?
Well, yeah, cards is one of the great pastimes that Mr. Jordan does enjoy, and over the years we've had some serious card games, and I mean, obviously, the level of betting that he does compared to me is night and day. But what I will share this one story with you. If you're playing for $1 or if you're playing for $100, Michael wants to win. It's just we'll get that out of the way first and foremost. But what I did get to see him do, and he did it to me a couple of times. Michael used to like to what we call bully the pot. So he'd have nothing, bluffing from jump, but obviously his stack was much bigger than yours, and he would go in. Now, sometimes you would call him, sometimes you wouldn't. But I remember one specific time that I did call him, and he had BS, man. He got such the biggest laugh turning over his hands. Now, I couldn't continue to bet because if I would have bet if I'd have called his last hand, that would have been it for me if I'd have lost. So he turns over his two cards. I think we were playing Hold'em. And he turns over his two cards that's in his hand, and it's like a pair and just a bunch of BS. I actually had a better hand, and he just laughed, and I'm like, okay. But I learned something that night. It backfired on me because one time I went in and he did have something. No, so after a while, anytime he started doing that, I'd start calling. I said, "Man, you can't bully the pot. You cannot bully the pot." The sweetest thing that I ever got. This was when we were filming Space Jam. I actually beat him. We were playing Hold'em. I actually beat him on a pot, and he wanted to play, but they were calling him to go film. So he had to leave. I got up and left, went back, and he came after shooting his stuff, and he was like, "Come on, man, we got to finish this hand." I'm like, "No, I got to go stand in. I got to go do something for you." He said, "You ain't getting away from me." I said, "Yeah, exactly." I said, "Mike, I got a job, man. I got to go do my job, buddy." Yeah, exactly. Well, the irony of it is, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had that job anyway. So
I would love for you to share the story that you started to tell us a little bit about Joe Pytka, who, for those that don't know, Joe is a world famous director.
Joe Pytka, like you said, amazing directors. Probably, if you look at the overall scheme of things, you could say he's one of the greatest commercial directors to ever do it. Uh, Not only based on the amount of uh, spots that he shot, but the specific spots. There's like some monumental, iconic spots, and we could go back to the genesis for Space Jam actually being started. That was based off of a commercial that Joe Pytka shot, Super Bowl commercial that he shot. But this particular time on Space Jam, and Joe is a big man, about 6'5", 240, 245. Yeah, he's good size. And he's rough.
And he's a
So he
self-proclaimed
thinks,
basketball player, right? Self-proclaimed.
he's more of an athlete than a basketball player, but he loves basketball. He is the only director that I know that has to have his goal on set with him. Wherever he shoots, he brings his goal with him. So that just lets you know how much he loves the game. So we got all these NBA players and former NBA players on the set of Space Jam, and it was this one player that he wasn't a star, but he played with the Phoenix Suns, and I can't remember his name. I want to say Joe Collier or Joe Cormier. I'm not sure, but he was a guy from Mississippi State, big, about 6'8", a power forward. But again, he's not a star. He's just a complimentary NBA player. But for most people, that complimentary NBA player is still a heck of a player. So Joe starts talking to Michael and telling him how he thinks he could play. He says, I'm not talking about, you or Patrick or Charles or anybody. I'm talking about the guys that just compliment you. He said, some of those guys are stiffs. So Joe hears that, and he's like, all right, come on. So Pytka goes out there and challenges him. And this dude puts it on Joe, dunks on him, and as he's going up, hits him in the face and kind of, brings a little blood. Joe, being who he is, isn't going to whimper or whatever. He toughs it out or whatever. But I could tell that was a little surprise, a little jolt. And Michael's sitting there laughing, telling Joe, see? He said, we ain't pretending to play ball. He said, he plays ball. That's the real deal.
I would just like to leave it with a question, and don't answer this, okay? Because Michael knows where you live. Who was the guy who actually jumped across the bridge, and they ended up using that Jumpman logo for Brand Jordan? Who was that? Who was that masked man? Anyway, thank you very much.
That's debatable. That's debatable, Pete, but I won't answer it.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
We're proud to be sponsored by Litchfield Distillery. They like to call themselves Batchers in honor of the early farmers of Northwest Connecticut, a region known for its ample yield of wheat, corn, and barley. Growing these crops in the rocky terrain requires grit and determination. For the past decade, Litchfield Distillery has been busy distilling Litchfield County's best harvest into fine craft spirits, one batch at a time. Litchfield Distillery, the spirit of hard work.